This is Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network.
And we're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the sports betting network. It is hour number 3. And how about if we talk a little hockey? Because what we saw in that Vegas Golden Knights game was just absolutely superb. And joining me right now on the progressive guest line is a man that covers the Vegas Golden Knights, Chris Chapman. He does a tremendous job over here locally over on the radio station Fox Sports 98.9. And he is a part of the VGK Insider Show as well. And Chris, it's great to be able to get you aboard. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Greg. Great game of hockey tonight with Vegas and Edmonton. I mean, both games 2 and 3 were tremendous, and we were treated to a good one tonight.
Oh, absolutely. And we're treated Chris on the progressive guest line. And Chris, just take me through those last few minutes, because for the Vegas Golden Knights, I think that's fair to say that third goal that they let up, it was a little bit of a soft goal, and it was looking like this thing was going to be going to overtime. And when you get overtime in the NHL playoffs, you never know what you're going to get, because you might have been there until like 5 o'clock in the morning. Say that jokingly and somewhat not jokingly as well. But I mean, they were able to pull that thing out in the final second. And I mean, that's just a complete, shall we say, spirit killer, in my opinion, for the Oilers.
Yeah, it's kind of funny because I'm here in Vegas. I didn't travel up to Edmonton with some of the other media members, but with about 3.5 minutes left, I said to my wife, I said, they're going to really have to buckle down and close this one out. And literally right as I say that, Aiden Hill makes this huge save on Connor McDavid, and then off the face-off, Edmonton ties it up. A bit of a fluky goal, right? It comes in off of Brady McNabb's skate, and I think that was actually 2 goals that Edmonton scored tonight that deflected in off of McNabb, who we didn't even know was going to play until right before face-off. But it's funny how the game happens. I thought Vegas was the better team most of the night outside of those 2 quick goals that Edmonton scored in the first period. And then it looked like we were going to go to overtime. And as you said, in overtime, anything can happen, as we saw the other night. And sometimes the better team doesn't win when you get to overtime in hockey. And I think for Vegas, it was real desperation to win that game. And the play by William Karlsson, I know everyone's going to talk about the goal by Riley Smith, and they should, but the play William Karlsson makes to get down and win that puck below the goal line, to center it to Smith, to even set up an opportunity for them to score. I mean, to me, that's the play within the play. But what a great finish for Vegas with 0.4 seconds left. It's tied with 2 other goals, I believe. Nazem Kadri had one, and Jussi Jokinen had one with 0.4 seconds ago, the latest game-winning goal in Stanley Cup playoff history. So we saw history tonight with that goal.
Oh, we certainly did. That was one of the greatest finishes to a hockey game that I think that I've ever seen. And I was joking with you a little bit off air. It felt like everyone knew that was a goal except for the refs, because the refs, they were probably preparing for overtime themselves, being like, wait, what? There was a goal that was scored. But just taking a look at the tenor of the rest of the series, how do you evaluate things? Because you mentioned it with the Vegas Golden Knights, it did feel like they were the better team all night long, and it felt like this was one that might be lost in the abyss, but they needed to find a way to be able to get home ice back. They did so here, and I think that this is going to be a massive series shifter.
Yeah, I thought they were the better team on Thursday in Game 2. They unfortunately didn't win that one. But yeah, you know what? This is a huge momentum shift, I think, because Edmonton probably felt like they enjoyed their chance, or they would have liked their chances in overtime. Obviously, anytime you have Draisaitl, McDavid, Zach Hyman, Evan Bouchard, I mean, those guys can score almost at will. And anytime you have them out on the ice in overtime, you have to like your odds of winning a game. And I think it's got to be a little bit deflating for Edmonton, because I think they would have felt like they were going to win this game in overtime, especially the way Vegas kind of sat back a little bit in the third period. They didn't really push as much as they probably should have. But now, Game 4 for Edmonton, if you lose that game, all of a sudden it's a best of 3, and 2 of those 3 games are here in Vegas, and you would have lost 2 in a row heading back to Vegas. So it's a big momentum shift. Obviously, I think Edmonton, I really like their coach, Chris Knobloch. I think he'll get those guys ready. He's a bit different than Jay Woodcroft, who was their previous coach 2 years ago when these 2 teams played. He was a bit of a fire starter, whereas Knobloch seems like a more of a calming kind of presence. So I think he'll get those guys under control, and he'll let them get the emotions out tonight, and they'll go back to work tomorrow. Game 4 is going to be epic, Greg. It's going to be an epic hockey game.
Oh, it certainly is going to be. As joining me, we've got Chris Chapman, who does great work over at 98.9 out here in lovely Las Vegas with the VGK Insider Show. Joining me on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network, and no doubt about it, this is going to be a big series. And just in terms of what we're seeing out west, it's really intriguing as well because we're going to be having upcoming a really big game on Sunday as well, as we've got ourselves the Winnipeg versus Dallas series, with right now Dallas being about a minus 142, a minus 145 favorite. And how do you evaluate this series between the Jets and the Stars? Because we're going to be seeing whoever wins this series take on the winner of Oilers versus VGK. And I think that this is a series where it's one of those cases where you don't want to let a team get hot. And with the Dallas Stars being able to get a lot of their, for lack of a better term, stars back out there on the ice, I think that that's a complete series shifter for them as well.
Yeah, Jason Robertson came back last night. It didn't help them. They didn't get that big bump that they were probably hoping for, but they did win game one. I really like this Stars team. I've said it multiple times. I think Pete DeBoer is the best coach right now in the NHL who has not won a Stanley Cup. So it kind of feels like he's due. The funny thing is, I didn't think the Stars were going to beat the Avalanche. I looked at the way they played down the stretch. They weren't going to have Miro Heiskanen and Jason Robertson in that first-round series against the Colorado Avalanche. And it's like Pete DeBoer has some kind of special fairy dust. If you get to Game 7 with him, you've got no chance of winning. So for Winnipeg, it's almost like every game is a must-win for them, because if you get to a Game 7, you may as well hang it up because you've got no shot to beat Pete DeBoer in those Game 7s. But as you mentioned, big game tomorrow. I really like Dallas. I think they're going to win this game. I think they're going to go on to win the series. They are a very dangerous team. They're a very well-coached team. They've got a great goalie in Jake Ottinger, and they've got some real superstar players. And as we've seen, Mikko Rantanen, I think right now, if you were to award a Conn Smythe Trophy halfway through the second round, he's got to be the guy who's the favorite.
Yep, I agree with you, and I do think that this is going to be a really interesting series to take a look at in general, because with the Winnipeg Jets as well, going back a little bit to them, it just feels like they're the biggest roll of the dice, because you don't know what you're going to get out of Connor Hellebuyck, who he was able to have that nice shutout in game number 2, but he has been so hit or miss when it comes to big games, when it comes to big series, and I think that that's a real X factor when it comes to the series.
Yeah, it's kind of like a catch-22 with him, because sometimes he's absolutely amazing, and other times you're like, wait, this guy's won multiple Vezina trophies and he's up for the Hart Trophy. For me with Winnipeg, they're always a you need to prove it to me team. And we've seen this from them multiple times in the last couple of years where they have a great regular season. Hellebuyck, he wins the Vezina. He's the best goalie in the NHL. Then they get to the playoffs and they stink. And I don't know what to make of them, but to me, it's always I'm not a big believer in that team until they prove it to me, and they still are yet to prove it to me in the long run. So I would always shy away from them just because I just don't trust them.
Yeah, I'm right there with you. It's always tough to be able to trust in them. And even if you want to dive a little bit further in on Hellebuyck as well, you just go back to the Four Nations face-off as well. He lets in that goal late as well. So, there's just a lot of, shall we say, mistrust when it comes to them as well. And I do think that it's also interesting to see what we're getting out east, because the other playoff game that we're going to be seeing for Sunday is going to be the Maple Leafs and the Florida Panthers. And Panthers are Mondo favorites. They actually open up minus 225. This has come down to minus 185, minus 190. And I want to get your thoughts here if there's any hope for the Toronto Maple Leafs to, for one, be able to pull out this series, currently up 2-1, and for two, be able to pull out this game as well, because this would be massive. If they go up 3-1, that would put them in very good footing. But I do think that it's very interesting to see what we've all gotten out of the Florida Panthers, team that you know very well because they played against the Vegas Golden Knights in the Stanley Cup 2 seasons ago, and just what we've been getting out of them thus far in the series.
Yeah, I was worried heading into last night that maybe they had hit the wall in terms of, this is a team that had played a lot of hockey the last 2 years, and they had dealt with some injuries, and Matthew Tkachuk, was he 100%? But they proved last night why they are the defending Stanley Cup champions. That's a great team, a great coach. They've got a lot of really good players. Bobrovsky's a big-time goalie. I think for Toronto, you kind of have to approach this as a must-win as well, because if you get back to a best of 3, I don't know if I believe in – they're a lot like Winnipeg. I don't know if I believe in them to win 2 out of 3 games against a proven Florida Panthers team. I don't know if the option is to go back to Stolarz and net over Jacob Wall, or but that's where I would go if I'm Craig Berube. I'm going with Anthony Stolarz because he's been the better goalie in the playoffs for them. Wall has not been great. He wasn't great last night. So Stolarz is an option. I think you have to go with him tomorrow night in what has to feel like a must-win game because, like I said, you don't want to go back to Toronto tied at 2. And I think you don't want to have to be in a best of 3 against a team that has proven that they have the ability to go the distance and beat teams in must-win games.
Yep, and with the Toronto Maple Leafs, we got about a minute left here, Chris. I always think that it's big as well that we have seen them in these scenarios before, and for so many of these series, they just haven't been able to pull it out, and sometimes that just manifests itself as well, because I just always have my trepidations with the Maple Leafs for lack of a better term, the scar tissue that they've had in losing so many close series.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. I grew up in the Northeast, so I grew up around a lot of Yankee and Red Sox fans, and I always think back to Pedro Martinez basically saying that the Yankees are his daddy. Well, for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Brad Marchand is their daddy. And unfortunately for them, Brad Marchand is on the other side of the ice. He's on the other bench playing for the Florida Panthers. So I think they're going to come back and win this series, and I would not be surprised if Brad Marchand has a major, major role in Florida coming back to win this series.
No question. It's going to be fun to see what we get these next few days in the NHL playoffs. Chris, you're doing a great job of covering it all, and really do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no problem, Greg. Anytime. Have a great night.
Great to be able to get Chris aboard, talk a little hockey, and how about if we go from the ice to the diamond as we do have ourselves someone named Petty who's going to be taking the mound for Mother's Day. So how about if we dive in on that next right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
For the ones who get it done, the most important part is the one you need now. And the best partner is the one who can deliver. That's why millions of maintenance and repair pros trust Grainger, because we have professional-grade supplies for every industry, even hard-to-find products. And we have same-day pickup and next-day delivery on most orders. But most importantly, we have an unwavering commitment to help keep you up and running. Call, click Grainger.com, or just stop by. Grainger, for the ones who get it done.
Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. Was great to be able to talk a little hockey in the last segment as Chris Chapman, he does tremendous work here locally with the VGK Insider Show. So it was great to be able to get him aboard, talk a little bit about what we're seeing, not just in that Golden Knights series where you saw them put in a goal in the final second to be able to take down the Edmonton Oilers in game number 3, but just what we've been getting on the ice in general. So big thanks to him for joining me in the last segment, and want to pass this along as well for those of you guys that were listening in hour number 1. I was talking a little UFC, and we saw Valentina Shevchenko as an underdog in her matchup. Well, that was, I thought, one of the more easy bets on the board, and she was able to get the job done by unanimous decision, so she's able to get the win, and if you took the plus money there, she was able to get that done. So you do have to like to see that, and you have to like to see the fact that we've got so many games that are going to be happening in baseball on Sunday. I think that it's a great card, and how about if we do dive in on this game as we've got Petty, and hopefully he's not going to be a heartbreaker to our bankroll, as this is 977, 978 on the card. The Reds are on the road against the Houston Astros as Ronald Blanco is going to be getting the start for Houston, and it's Chase Petty who's going to be going for the Reds, and Reds are pretty sizable underdogs here. You're going to be finding them in the neighborhood about plus 130 to plus 135, in that neighborhood about minus 145, minus 155 on the Astros, and a total of 8.5. And I'm not even kidding when I read off this number. Chase Petty has an ERA above 34. He made one start earlier in the season. It came in late April, and for Chase Petty, he got completely banged around like a piñata. He got 8 outs, and he gave up 9 runs, all of which were earned. This was not great, to say the least. So he had 34.71 ERA with 7.7 home runs and 7.7 walks allowed per 9 innings. That's not great, to say the least. I always say that if your whip is a number that would be a pretty respectable bench press number, that's not necessarily where you want to be. I wish I could bench press 386 pounds because that's where it's at right now. And no, I can't bench 386 pounds. If you're watching me on YouTube TV, you can very clearly see that. But that's it for Chase Petty. If you look at the minor league numbers, because that's what you need to do when you have a very, very small sample size like this, overall for his career, hasn't been like any sort of an awful pitcher or anything like that. He's not necessarily a guy that's going to like blow you away or anything like that. For his career, about 9 strikeouts, a little bit over 3 walks per 9 innings. Does a good job of not giving up the deep ball. He didn't do that in his first career start, but I mean, transitioning up to the major league level, that's a little bit tough. And this is a very young pitcher. He just turned 22 years old about a month or so ago as well. He's a former first-round pick, so they're looking to be able to develop this guy, and we'll see if he's able to do a little bit better in start number 2. But I always believe that these young guys, they just need a few starts to be able to find their sea legs. And with this being start number 2, his first start being a few weeks ago, I don't know if he's going to be able to find it against an Astros lineup that I'm just expecting a little bit of positivity with them. Is this the same lineup that we've seen over the last few years? No, it's not, especially with Yordan Alvarez being on the injured list. And even when Yordan Alvarez was fully healthy, was not looking like he was firing on full cylinders this season. And for the Astros, you do have Jeremy Pena, who's really been the main man for them thus far this season. 5 home runs, which actually leads the team. They've got 31 home runs in their first 37 games, so that's been a little bit less than savory. But you've got plenty of guys that are doing a good job of being able to get on base, as you've got that with Pena, along with Jake Myers. Pair of guys hitting between about a 285 to a 300. Jose Altuve down in terms of his career numbers, hitting about a 260 with 4 home runs. You expect him to pick it up a little bit more, and Christian Walker, they acquired from the Arizona Diamondbacks in the offseason. He's had a very rough start to the season as well, but starting to pick it up a little bit. And then for the Cincinnati Reds, this has actually been one of the better offenses in all of baseball, and they are going to be experiencing a Houston Astros bullpen that is taxed. Now, for the Astros, they're going to have more of their, shall we say, trustworthy relievers out there on the field, because they used up all their, shall we say, longer guys on Saturday, because Lance McCullers Jr. could not get out of the first inning. The Cincinnati Reds scored at 10 spot in the first inning. They're averaging north of 5 runs per game away from home. That is a top 7 mark in all of baseball when you factor in what we saw on Saturday. And you do have Elliot De La Cruz, who's done a nice job of being able to give you those 6 home runs, one of the best base stealers in all of baseball. But another underrated base stealer is Matt McClain. Now, McClain has had a tough time being able to get on base, but when he does get on base, he's always very lethal and very, shall we say, prone to swiping bags. And then you got other guys that are doing a nice job of getting on base. Guys like TJ Friedel, along with Gavin Lux, have been able to hit 290. But I think that despite the fact that you've got a pretty solid offense, and a guy in Ronald Blanco who has struggled this year, 4.91 ERA, he's giving up well north of 1.3 home runs per 9 innings. Walks are a little bit of an issue as well, that they're not going to be able to overcome the fact that Petty, I think, is not going to be long for this game. I think that he's going to be in for a little bit of a rough start in general. So it's a interesting circumstance here with the Astros money line. I said it at more around a minus 162. If you're looking to lay a run half, a lot of places have this more in that neighborhood, about plus 135, plus 140. Sign me up for that run line. I need at least a plus 120 there, and I'm going to be willing to take a shot on this total over as well. Something else that you want to take a shot on, that would be Edge Boost. They make sure that bettors are able to access their funds for all their gambling transactions. 365 on leap years, 366 days out of the year. As with Edge Boost, there's no usage fees, there's no minimums. You're able to earn cashback rewards, and you get approval on all those deposits. And when you go to edgeboost.bet, type in the promo code of cash, because that'll earn you a $25 deposit match boost on your first deposit. So your first deposit of up to $25, they're going to match it when you go to edgeboost.bet and type in the promo code of cash. As it is cashing out with myself, Greg Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we do dive in on this game, as this is one where if you're watching this game on Mother's Day, you are certainly a hearty soul in terms of watching baseball, because we've got ourselves the Miami Marlins taking on the Chicago White Sox, as Sean Burke is going to be going for the Southsiders, and one Mr. Sandy Alcantara is on the bum for Miami. Miami's right now about a minus 124 to a minus 135 favorite. Total on this game is 8. You're able to get a little bit of plus money here on the Chicago White Sox. And for the White Sox, right now I'm seeing a lot of like plus 115. I'm seeing as high as a plus 118 out there. If you can get up to north of a plus 115, I'm going to take a shot on the money line, as this is not Sandy Alcantara that we're seeing right now. I am fully convinced that there is some imposter out there that has abducted the real Sandy Alcantara and has replaced him with some dude that has no idea what he's doing. Because for Sandy Alcantara, when he won the Cy Young in the 2022 season, he was always so good at not walking guys. He was really good in terms of his command and all that stuff. north of 5 walks per 9 innings. And this just happens when a player goes through major surgery like Sandy Alcantara. Missed the entirety of the 2024 season. But even though you know that a player is going to be having a little bit of a fall off because they go through major surgery, they're trying to come back, what have you, this is like way worse than what we typically find for a pitcher coming back off of major surgery. He's got a north of an 80 ERA. It has been all sorts of brutal in every single facet for this man. And for Sean Burke, it's not like he's been the Mona Lisa Vito of pitching himself. He's posting up well north of a 5 ERA, fielding a pennant north of a 5, as well as he's only been able to get about 6.5 strikeouts per 9 innings. He's allowing north of a home run after 9 innings with not necessarily great command. And for the Miami Marlins, it's a team that's been very good to the over this year. As a matter of fact, 2/3 of their games being played to the over right now. This despite the fact that you don't have a ton of power. You do have Matt Mervis, who's been able to give you 7 bombs, but he's hitting below the Mendoza line of 200. Additionally, you've been able to get 6 home runs out of Kyle Stowers. He's been able to move the line. You've had a few guys like Eric Wagaman and company that have not been able to work out for them. I still like Xavier Edwards. He's seen a little bit of dip in terms of his average, but I still remember when he hit for the cycle against the Milwaukee Brewers last year, so a little bit of an upside guy. You've got a lot of guys that are good in terms of station-to-station baseball and their overall production, but that said, for the Miami Marlins, not necessarily a ton of guys they're going to be able to slug a yard, but for the Chicago White Sox, feel like this offense is getting a little bit better, but that's not saying a lot because it really couldn't get too much worse for the Chicago White Sox. The team has just been so suspect with all these bats. You've got Andrew Benintendi, who's been able to supply the team with 5 home runs this far this season, but he's now hit the injured list. You've been having Luis Robert just not look like himself, and there's a little bit of a theory that I have. Maybe it's some sort of a crackpot theory, what have you, but I believe that when you're on a bad team like Luis Robert is, that the stink of that team, it just sort of seeps into you. I feel like that's happened to him and Andrew Vaughn. Pair of guys are aiming below the Mendoza line of 200. Both of these guys have 5 home runs, 16 RBI, so they're very similar there. On their own, I think that they're solid. On this stinky team, they just turn stinky, so that's not been great to say the least. Lennon Sosa's been able to move the line, hitting about a 265, but you're not getting a ton out of these guys. But again, Sandy Alcantara has been so bad that I want absolutely no part of any positivity with him whatsoever. Maybe the person who abducted Sandy Alcantara will return him to our lives, and he'll be able to then be able to look like the Sandy Alcantara of old. But until then, not feeling great about this one. I'm going to be willing to take a plus number on the Chicago White Sox, and semi-total a little bit north of 8. Even though you've got a pair of teams that have not necessarily been slugging the ball at the yard, I do think that you're going to get some relatively good offensive production. So I'm looking at that over, and I'm going to be looking at the money line of the Chicago White Sox. And something else that we're looking at, this game is just now starting to come onto the board. It's the Orioles on the road against the Los Angeles Angels. There's question mark as to whether or not Zach Eflin was going to be able to make this start for Baltimore. He is going to against Tyler Anderson. And right now for the Orioles, they're between about minus 135 to minus 142 favorites. Neighborhood of plus 120, plus 125 is that number on the Angels. And I just love fading guys coming off the injured list. It always feels like they're not necessarily right, and they can do as good of a job as they want in terms of rehabbing, trying to be able to get themselves acclimated to the big league level, but it's always a little bit of a roll of the dice for Zach Eflin. He's only been able to make 3 starts as far this season, and this is a much-needed return for the Orioles because their starting pitching has been garbage, I think is the best way of being able to put it. But that said, I just don't know if start number 1 is necessarily where we're going to be finding his peak Zach Eflin, guy that always does a great job of not walking guys, but is not getting a ton of strikeouts. We'll continue this on the other side, and additionally, how about if we take a look at the NBA playoff games that we're going to be getting for Sunday? So, little baseball, little hoop action on the flip side right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
We're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. We're going to pick up where we left off as we were touching upon Angels versus Orioles, and in a few minutes we'll get you guys some NBA plays for this Sunday as well, and we'll be very forthright here. I'm very much an in-game NBA guy myself. I know that we were talking with John Von Tobel in the previous hour. We were talking a little bit about things with him and how you should be probably taking a little bit more of a look at an in-game total rather than betting it right now, and I wholeheartedly agree with him, so we'll touch upon that in a few minutes. But that said, how about if we do touch upon this Orioles versus Angels game right now, as I'm going to be in on that Angels money line. I was willing to take anything of a plus 122 or higher, as I'm not a believer in Zach Eflin coming off the injured list. And for Eflin, I believe that he was able to make like one sort of a rehab start, and he was able to go 4 innings at the high A level over at Aberdeen, but not necessarily a lot of prep time to be able to get set for this start. And I do think that that's going to be a little bit of a hindrance. And for Tyler Anderson, very intriguing pitcher to say the least, as he was one of the luckiest pitchers in all of baseball last year. And just having watched a lot of Tyler Anderson starts, it just feels like he's got some sort of magic pixie dust that he just throws out there because everything seems to go his way. 2.68 ERA, 4.87 fielding dependent. He's giving up 1.6 home runs per 9 innings. So thus far this season, he has allowed 12 earned runs and 7 homers over the course of 40 and a third innings. Like, I don't know how he's doing it, but somehow he's doing it, and he's done it for multiple years. It's like, my goodness, you even go back to that year where he went 15-5 for the LA Dodgers. He just kept getting things to break his way, and sometimes you just have a pitcher that's able to do that. They're able to induce soft contact, but he goes up against an Orioles lineup that it's suspect, I think is the best way of putting it. Like, I mean, it's not like the Orioles are as bad as the Colorado Rockies or something like that. Like, man, those guys. When you get shut out at home by Stephen Kolek, you know you're going the wrong way down a one-way street. But that said, when it comes to this Baltimore Orioles lineup, it's been shaky to say the least because they have been dealing with quite a few injuries. Right now, you've got on the injured list Jordan Westberg along Colton Cowser, which that's a little bit less than tremendous. Now they've got Gary Sanchez out as well. But you expect Ryan Mountcastle, Adley Rushman to be hitting better than a 220. Jackson Alday has been solid in terms of moving line, not necessarily giving you a lot of power. Now the good news is they're getting back Tyler O'Neill, but Cedric Mullins was really carrying this team for the first 4 or 5 weeks of the season. He has seen a little bit of a fall off in his own sort of production. Ryan Ern, in my opinion, has actually been the most rock solid bat for the team, hitting right around a 300. He's been able to give the team 7+ home runs thus far this season, so do like to see that. And for the LA Angels, this team is so feast or famine at the plate because they just hit a bunch of bombs and they really don't hit for average. Bottom 4 team in the big leagues with regards to that overall batting average, as you've got someone in Zach Neto who's been able to give you a bit of something, but now you've got Ori Soler, who's currently day-to-day dealing with a little bit of an injury. Mike Trout is on the injured list, which shock, surprise, surprise, he's back on the injured list. But Kyron Paris, Taylor Ward, both give me 6+ home runs. Both of these guys hitting below 225. Logan O'Hoppe has really been that main guy moving the line for you. He's able to give you 8+ home runs. He's been able to do a nice job of being able to come up with some big hits. But Luis Renifo, he had a really good year last year in terms of being able to get on base. He has done none of that thus far this season, so it makes it a very interesting predicament. I just don't want to be laying this sort of a number with Zach Eflin coming off the injured list, not knowing what you're going to get out of him. And though the Angels bullpen is awful, they are dead last in the American League in terms of ERA. There is not a single guy in this Angels bullpen that I trust. Maybe Ryan Zephyrian, who's been giving you about a 3.55 ERA, but I mean, man, Kenley Jansen always seems a crater. Reed Detmers has been awful. Jose Fermin, no thanks. Brock Burke, well, he's getting Brock and rolled right now. And then on the flip side for the Baltimore Orioles, Ynier Cano, Felix Bautista is actually a really nice 8th and 9th inning duo, but the guys to try to get you there, especially with Zach Eflin probably being on some sort of a pitch count, and that's not Gregory Sotos or Anthony Dominguez. Those former Philadelphia Phillies have not been great, and Ciano Perez is right now rocking an ERA of 9. Not good, to say the least. So, circumstance where I did actually take a shot on the under because I believe that Eflin just better than the pitchers and the Orioles have been trotting out there in general. And the Angels, they just swing for the fences or they give you nothing whatsoever. So, like that under. And I do like the Angels on the money line. What else I like is the fact that over here at VSiN, you're able to get a nice little discount on all the stuff that we're doing right now. If you're looking to be able to sign up for a full year, instead of paying $240, you're able to do so for just $199. And on top of that $41 savings, you go from 12 months to 14 months. When you go to VSiN.com/subscribe and you type in the promo code of PRO, P-R-O, that gives you daily best bets from all of our VSiN shows and guests, exclusive betting splits from DraftKings along with Circa, 24/7 live video and show replays on the VSiN Watch app, plus all of our special edition betting guides. I know that we're going to have one for football. I'm already working on the college basketball guide, and that's not coming out for 6 months. That's how far we go in advance with regards to these betting guides. Head on over to VSiN.com/subscribe. Type in the promo code of PRO, P-R-O. That saves you $41 and gives you an extra 2 months for free, as it is cashing out with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. And how about if we dive in on a little bit of NBA playoff action? As I was saying a few minutes ago, not necessarily going to be a guy that's going to be betting these prior to the game. I'm going to be looking for some in-game opportunities. And as I always advise you with regards to in-game betting in terms of the NBA, if you don't see what you like, you don't need to force anything up. I know that we're getting a little bit later on towards the season, but we are still going to have a lot of betting opportunities in terms of a lot of these games. And sometimes, even though you might not find that betting opportunity in the first half, a lot of times the second half is able to present you with one. Heck, as I was doing the show tonight, I wasn't really finding much in terms of that Timberwolves versus Golden State Warriors game early. Final minute 20-minute, 15 seconds of the game, I saw a really good opportunity to be able to take a live over, was able to get there very easily. I love to be able to just scheme things up in terms of a lot of those live totals late in games when I know that a team's going to be following, not following, sense of urgency, what have you. I find a lot of success on that front, and I think that this one is going to be so fascinating between the Cleveland Cavaliers and the Indiana Pacers. I know that John Von Tobel was talking about the fact that the Cleveland Cavaliers have just dealt with so much injury. They're now getting fully healthy, and this is reflected in the fact that this opener of 4.5, where the Cleveland Cavaliers were the favorite, this is now up to 5, and the total on this game is 231. This is probably the hardest series for me to be able to gauge, because with the Indiana Pacers, if you look at things ever since really late January, this has been one of the most supreme teams in all of basketball. Now, the defense of the Indiana Pacers, shocker, it's leaving a little bit of something to be desired. And personally, I think that the total might be starting to go a skoge too high. I recognize that we have been seeing a lot of high-scoring exposés with regards to the series in general, and it's an Indiana Pacers team that they're really turned down for absolutely nobody whatsoever. But that said, I've been very impressed by what we've seen out of Pascal Siakam thus far in the entirety of the playoffs. He's been able to do a very rock-solid job for this team. Now, what I think is going to be very key, what are you going to be able to get moving forward out of Ben Mathurin, who I always feel like he's a little bit of the, shall we say, forgotten guy for this team. He was able to come out in game number 3. He had himself a nice performance, but it was in a little bit of vain, and it was in a little bit of a losing effort. Obviously, Tyrese Halliburton is one of the best Swiss Army knife guys they're going to find in all basketball, but when it comes to the flip side for the Cleveland Cavaliers, it's been what I've been talking about pretty much all throughout the season with the Cavaliers. Less has been more out of Donovan Mitchell, though he's really went into a little bit more, shall we say, takeover mode here in the postseason, averaging north of 31 points per contest, had himself a combined 91 points in the last 2 games, but I don't know if that's necessarily going to be sustainable, because even when he had that 48-point performance in game number 2, that was not enough for them to be able to have a winning effort. I do think that with this team, they're going to need to get a little bit more of something from Ty Jerome, who I know that John Von Tobel was talking about him. The fact that he was able to get things going in game number 3, I thought was very encouraging for this team. If you're looking at some of these guys a little bit further down the board as well, someone like a Max Strus, who could be a little bit hit or miss from 3-point range, I think that he's going to be a big key for this team. I'm looking at something in game to where I'm able to get a little bit of a better number on the Indiana Pacers. I just do feel like this Indiana Pacers team is going to be able to find a way, and personally, I hope that they get off to a super duper hot start, because I do believe that there's going to be a little bit of regression with regards to both of these offenses and the way that they have been really popping it and locking it from 3-point range here in the series. So I'm going to be hoping that I can get this at like a high 230s, perhaps even a 240 with regards to a live under, because I do think that we are going to see a little bit of a fall off there. And if you get a tight game late, which I think that this is going to be a tight game, like if I had to play this right now, I'd be taking a look at the points with the Indiana Pacers being able to get a 5+, but if you do get a tight game late, a lot of times you're going to be seeing things just get a little bit more ratcheted up and a little bit more tense with regards to those sort of circumstances as well, which should be able to help out a live under. And then in terms of OKC versus Denver, right now Denver as high as 7-point home underdog if you're looking at circa in this game, at a total of 227.5. The only way I would look right now is Denver. Now, obviously, the OKC Thunder have had just such great metrics all season long, but it does feel like with the OKC Thunder, this is a team that sometimes that lack of experience really does show through. And I do think that that's a little bit of an underrated aspect of basketball. And I am very much a firm believer in, typically in the NBA, you have to lose before you can win. Now, with the OKC Thunder, we did see them lose last season, but I still go back to the fact that the average starting 5 of the OKC Thunder less than 24 months older than that of the Auburn Tigers in the Final Four. It's just absolutely insane what we've seen here. And for the Denver Nuggets, you still have the best player on the face of planet Earth. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has been tremendous. He's a top 3 player, in my opinion, on the face of planet Earth. He's not quite Nikola Jokic, who he does everything. He's a walking triple-double. He's able to supply for this team. Now, obviously, with the Denver Nuggets, that backcourt can sometimes be a little bit suspect, but I do think that with Denver, they do find a way to, at the very minimum, hold in this game, being at elevation. I know that's game number 2 at elevation for the OKC Thunder. I think that that's going to be able to help them out immensely in this spot as well. So, going to be trying to be able to get as good of a number as possible on the Nuggets. Heck, even if you're able to get that +7, I think that that's relatively good value. And coming up next, we try to find you guys some value plays on the diamond for Mother's Day, right here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
Welcome back to Cashing Out here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.
And we're back here on Cashing Out on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network. If you're listening live to Cashing Out, well, after this, you're going to get a replay of this fine program. Meanwhile, if you're listening to the replay, we've got ourselves a great Mother's Day slate for you guys with the VSiN Morning Line. I know that Tim Murray does a great job on that show, Ready, Set, Bet, and all the shows that you know and love. So how about if I do my part and we take a look at everything that we've got in baseball, try to get you guys some money and try to get you guys safely to what we're all going to be seeing on Sunday. And I am very much a little bit more of a baseball guy, more so than anything else. Just personally not necessarily too much of an NHL bettor, though. I mean, absolutely loving what we're seeing in the playoffs right now. That final that we saw from the Vegas Golden Knights on Saturday, just second to none in terms of what we've seen in playoff action just across all sports this year. So, I mean, I absolutely love that. But that said, how about if we take a look at more of my specialty sports? And this is a game that I've yet to hit upon. So, how about if we dive in on this one first? Because I do have quite a bit of an angle here in 963, 964 between the Royals and the Boston Red Sox. Lucas Giolito is on the bump for the Sox, and Seth Lugo goes for Kansas City. The total is 8.5, and with the Royals between minus 125 to minus 130 favorites. And I just can't trust in Lucas Giolito. He has given up 9 runs in his first 9 2/3 innings thus far this season and missed the entirety of the 2024 season. Last we saw him in 2023, he was a mess. He was posting up north of a 4.80 ERA. He was so bad that he was on 3 different teams in the same season because the Angels traded for him and then they gave up on him. If you recall, the Angels decided to go all in that last year of Shohei Ohtani. They become buyers at the market and then they just probably go on a losing streak. So that was interesting, and Lucas Giolito was a big part of that. So congratulations to Lucas Giolito there. In that year, he was giving up north of 3 walks per 9 innings, north of 1.5 homers per 9. And for Seth Lugo, he's not as good as his sub-3 ERA would indicate. His fielding independence is a little bit north of a point higher, and he does go up against the Boston Red Sox team that's been solid with their offense. Now, Rafael Devers, he's very much looking more at the offense rather than the defense right now. I think that's very fair to say after he refused to play first base. So good, clean family fun right there. But that said, you've had Weiler Abreu be able to do a nice job supplying the team with 7+ home runs. Christian Campbell has been really good for this team as well. You've got a few guys towards the bottom of the lineup that have been a little bit more hit or miss. Ceddanne Rafael just has never been able to put it together quite yet, but it's been a little bit better here recently. Trevor Story's been a bit hit or miss, but Alex Bregman has been a really nice pickup, but for the Kansas City Royals, this has become a very good under team thus far this season, as north of 2/3 of their games have been played to the under, and they've had 6 shutouts in their last 15 games. So these guys are really dealing, and what I love about the Kansas City Royals, this bullpen is so much better than it was in the past. That was always one of your big trepidations. They picked up Lucas Erceg at the trade deadline last season, and he and Carlos Estevez forming a really nice 8th and 9th inning duo, and some of these failed starters have really become nice bullpen pieces, like John Schreiber comes out over from the Boston Red Sox, has been able to give you good ERA. Daniel Lynch is one of the main guys in the bullpen right now. He's able to give you multiple innings. He's been firing all cylinders. Anel Zerpa has been a little bit hit or miss, but I actually like him in the bullpen. And for the Red Sox, it does feel like the bullpen is a little bit more of a roll of the dice. You've got Greg Weiser, who's very hit or miss. Aroldis Chapman, I just can't trust in. Like, this guy poops the bed at the absolute most inopportune of times, so that's not necessarily what you want to be dealing with. You've actually had Brandon Bernardino be very good for this bullpen as well. And for the Royals, this has been a bottom 6 team in terms of run creation because they just simply have not had a lot of power in general. You've got Vinny Pasquantino up to 6 home runs this season, and Bobby Witt Jr. is starting to find it a little bit more. Bobby Witt Jr. along with Miguel Garcia, both hitting north of 310 is pretty solid for this team, but don't necessarily have those boppers and some of the guys that you expected to be good for this team and not been. Like MJ Melendez has been such a disaster that he's right now at the minor league level. That's been not great to say the least. Hunter Renfroe's giving you a big giant nothing burger. Mark Canna's been injured all season long, so it's a very interesting ordeal here. Even though I don't trust in Lucas Giolito, I just don't know if you get enough offense for the over, even though this is a little bit more of a, shall we say, hitter's ballpark, but going to be one diving on the under. But I do think that the Royals are going to get a much better performance out of Lugo than the Boston Red Sox get out of Giolito. Set my line at a minus 139, so I'm going to be willing to take a shot on that Royals money line to go along with the under. And how about if we take a shot here on G-Bank, because G-Bank, they're making sure that you're able to save some money on all of your gaming related transactions, and they are going to be able to make sure that you're able to get some cash back for whenever you utilize the card as well, because most credit cards, they do treat sportsbook and gaming transactions as cash advances, and that's just 3 to 5% in fees right there off the top. With GBank, you're earning 1% cashback rewards, and you're saving on all those fees, and you're able to get 2% cashback on most other purchases, with the 1% being on all of your eligible sportsbook and gaming transactions. And you are able to apply over at vsin.com/GBank. That is VSIN.com/GBank. They make sure that you're able to save on all those fees, and you're able to get so much cashback rewards for utilizing the card. And it is the official bank of VSIN, as this is cashing out for with myself, Greg Oops Peterson, right here on the Sports Betting Network. And let's dive in on some bets I do like on this Sunday, as this is another game that I've yet to hit, and this is going to be one where I trust in the home state Milwaukee Brewers, 971, 972. We've got Chad Patrick going up against Drew Rasmussen, and right now for the Rays, actually open up at a -150. We've seen this taper down to about a -135, -140, and right now that total is 8.5. You've got very identical numbers between these two starters. Chad Patrick with a 3.08 ERA, 3.09 for Drew Rasmussen. Both of these guys hovering between about a 3.70 to a 3.80 fielding dependent. Both of these guys give you right around 7.5 to 8 strikeouts per 9 innings. Both are pretty solid with regards to their command, about 2.5 walks per 9 innings. And for the Brewers, it's been less than savory with the bullpen. I'm going to call it what it is. They're right now a bottom 10 team with regards to a bullpen ERA, but these are all the guys that we saw last season be number one in the National League with regards to that bullpen ERA. Yopayam, Elvis Piguero, throwing there Jared Koenig, Trevor McGill, and heck, Ebner Uribe was out for much of the season for the Brewers last year. He's been able to supply a sub-3 ERA. He's been a nice Swiss Army knife in that bullpen as well. Meanwhile, for the Rays, you know that these guys are going to be able to fire on all cylinders. Even someone like an Eric Orze, who's a little bit new to them, he's been able to give you a sub-3 ERA. Mason Montgomery has been rock solid. Pete Fairbanks, so you know that you're going to get good performance there. But for the Tampa Bay Rays, though the offense has been a little bit better at home this season than they have been in the past, that's mainly because of the fact that, well, they're no longer playing at the Trop. They're now playing at Steinbrenner Field, and that's an outdoor ballpark that has the dimensions that mimic Yankee Stadium. They have been a little bit better there, but still not necessarily firing all cylinders on all on offense. You've got Jonathan Aranda, who's been able to give you north of a 400 on base. He's been able to give you a little bit of power. Junior Camanero's up to 7 home runs, but you could use a little bit more out of these guys like Taylor Walls and company at the bottom of the lineup. And for the Brewers, it's been a bit hit or miss on offense for them as well, mainly because they haven't had a lot of, shall we say, home run power. Jackson Chourio has been able to give you 7 home runs. You've been able to get 6 bombs out of Christian Yelich, but this is just not the Christian Yelich that we all know and love. We're never going to see the peak MVP form of Christian Yelich again, in my opinion, just because he's had a lot of injuries. But that said, for the Brewers, you do have Sal Frelick, who's been able to give you about a 375 on base. You've been able to get relatively good production out of Bryce Durang as well, as he's been able to swipe quite a few bags. So I like what these guys are bringing to the table. And Rhys Hoskins, though the power's not necessarily been there this season, just 3 home runs, he's been able to do a solid job, give you north of a 370 on base as well. I just believe that the Brewers bullpen is going to round into form a little bit more. I believe that Patrick, who I still remember, he won like 15-1 with the Nashville Sounds last season, and this is a Brewers team that they do a really good job of being able to develop their pitchers. I do believe that the Brewers just a little bit undervalued here. I'm going to be willing to take that plus number on the Brewers. Needed at least a plus 115 to be able to fire in there. Mostly seeing about a plus 120, plus 125. And in terms of this total, did something at 8.6. I do think that you're going to be able to get just enough offense, and it is starting to warm up out there in Florida, and that's something that you want to gauge. I do think that when we get to the summer months, Florida's going to have that ball flying out of the yard all over the place. So I'm liking the over, and I'm liking the Milwaukee Brewers on the money line there. This is something I talked about a little bit before, but sometimes the best bets are the ones that you don't make. Don't bet on the Colorado Rockies right now on the money line. 6-33 thus far this season. Boy, oh boy. They are on pace to win 25 games this season. Now, run line is starting to get very, very hefty on the San Diego Padres, and I can't bring myself to laying a minus 190 run line. Like, I dove in on this a little bit earlier when we were able to get more, shall we say, respectable numbers on the San Diego Padres. Minus 190, minus 195. That run line is just getting to be a little bit too far. So look for ways to fade the Colorado Rockies without laying those just absolutely exorbitant prices. And the way that I'm doing so, I wrote this up for my column that's currently up on vsin.com. I took a shot on the under, mainly because Nick Pivetta has been really good for the Padres. Sub-3 fielding dependent. His ERA is hovering right around about a 2.1. Guy's been absolutely dealing ever since he left Boston. And for Ermar Marquez, He's got a north of 9 ERA, so that's not tremendous. And we did see the San Diego Padres put up a 21 spot by themselves yesterday. Do think that we're going to see a little bit more of a tamed offense here from the San Diego Padres. I think that Marquez is doing for some positivity, but Colorado Rockies, right now they're scoring less than 4.3 runs per game at home. They're below average in run creation in Coors Field compared to most teams. Coors Field. So that's how bad it's gone. So I'm just going to be looking at that total under. And what else I'm looking at, everything that we've got here on VSiN for this Sunday. It's going to be starting out with the weekend morning line. Tim Murray and company always doing a great job there. Mike Somich along with Matt Brown on Ready, Set, Bet. That's going to be starting up at 1 o'clock p.m. Eastern time, and then live bet Sunday. You'll typically be finding me doing guest spots with Scott Seidenberg on that show as well. So you always get some great fun. Scott does a great job, and hopefully I'm able to supply some good insights there as we've got it all going on here on VSiN, as we've got such a great, shall we say, time in the sports calendar, and we've got you covered all Sunday for this Mother's Day right here on VSiN, the Sports Betting Network.